The Vahreth came through on the exact date the tablets predicted. I had always known they would. I was 81 years old when they arrived, sitting in the Warden Vault 200 meters below the surface of what had once been the center of the world, watching 12 transit signatures fold open on my board like wounds. The duty officer beside me, a young woman named Selfarin, did not move. She had trained for this her entire career. We all had. Every commander who had ever sat in this chair had trained for this, going back further than memory, going back to the first generation that translated the tablets and understood what they said. "Transit complete," Sel said. 12 vessels. Formation consistent with a March vanguard column. I acknowledged her without looking up. On my board, the outer grid was already awake, not alerted, not scrambled, simply awake, the way a soldier comes to attention before a command is formally given. 4,000 years of readiness has a texture to it. You feel it in the air of the vault, in the hum of the relay columns, in the precise quiet of a crew that is not afraid because it has had longer than most civilizations exist to think through exactly what it would do today. The Vahreth had burned old Varantis 35,000 years ago. The city they burned had been our largest. They had come down from orbit in descending fireships, declared the Sundering in their sacred tongue, and reduced 2 million square kilometers of civilization to ash and fused glass. Then they had left. Their departure tablets, stone columns packed into sealed vaults at the edge of the burn zone, written in the stellar position script they used for holy calendars, had explained everything. We were a sundered world. They would return when the alignment came. They would finish what they started. The first generation after the burning found the tablets. The second generation translated them. The third understood the calendar. By the fourth generation, construction on the Warden Vault had begun. First transmission from the Vanguard, Sel said. Rendering now. It came through as expected, the Sundering Declaration, the same one they had broadcast from orbit before the fireships descended 35,000 years ago. The same stellar position script. The same ritual cadence. They had maintained their holy text across the full span of the absence, which I will admit I had always found a strange kind of parallel to what we had done. They expected silence in reply, or panic, or the primitive scatter response of a people who did not know they were coming. I keyed the transmit channel. Vahreth Eternal March. Vanguard Commander. This is Warden Vault, Planetary Defense Central Relay, speaking for the Coordinated Earth Authority. We have received your Sundering Declaration. We transmitted the acknowledgement 31,000 years ago. You were not present to receive it. We are retransmitting now. There was a pause of 14 seconds. I used those 14 seconds to pull up the file on my secondary board. It was not a large file by modern standards. It was simply the oldest. A scan of the original departure tablets, transcribed, translated, annotated, every stellar position cross-referenced against our own astronomical records, every predicted return date verified, every line of their holy law written out with our own notes in the margins in 12 successive scripts as our language evolved over the millennia. 31,000 years of marginalia. The last annotation, entered by the Vault Commander before me, read simply, * alignment confirmed. Station at full readiness. Log closed pending contact, *. I sent it. We have also transmitted, I continued, the unbroken maintenance log for this facility, covering 31,000 years of continuous operation. The facility was constructed on the site of Old Varantis. Specifically, on the burn scar your fireships left when you departed. We thought that was appropriate. The pause this time was longer. While I waited, I watched the outer grid on my board. Above the vault, above the relay tower, above the ruin site that had been Old Varantis before the Vahreth burned it and was now the Varantis Commemorative District and Defense Nexus, the sky was doing what it had been built to do. The defense satellites were not moving aggressively. They were simply visible, their running lights up, their array signatures readable on any scan the Vanguard cared to run. Behind them, in the mid-orbital band, the warship tier was present and logged, their hulls transmitting standard identification in the same stellar position script the Vahreth used, because we had learned their script from their own tablets, and we had decided 30,000 years ago that we would speak to them in it when they arrived. The scale of the network was not something I could convey to them in words, and I did not try. A scan would do it better than language. I knew they were running scans. I could see the query pings landing across the outer grid like rain. Every ping came back with an answer. Every answer was a number that was larger than whatever number they had projected for a sundered world. Warden Vault. The voice that came through was low and structured, the consonants clipped in the way their holy speakers shaped them. I recognized it from the recordings our linguists had made over the centuries as the Vahreth's broadcast signals occasionally crossed our listening posts during the long absence. This was a high consecrator. The rank that had declared the sundering. The rank empowered, under their own law, to speak for the march. You have transmitted the tablets. We have. You have read them. We have read them, translated them, annotated them, and maintained a continuous record of our reading for 31,000 years. The annotation file is 47 volumes. I can transmit the index. Another pause. On my board, the vanguard formation had not moved, not forward, not back, not into a combat spread. 12 ships holding station at the transit emergence point, running scans and receiving answers they had not prepared for. I had sat in this chair for 11 years. I had thought many times about what I would feel when this moment came. I had expected something harder. What I actually felt was something closer to the particular tiredness that settles into a person when a very long task has been completed correctly. The record of your readiness, the High Consecrator said. Explain the purpose. I considered the question. It was not the question I had prepared for, which was a demand for terms or a reiteration of the sundering. It was a genuine question, I thought. The question of a mind confronting a fact that did not fit its framework and trying, with some integrity, to understand it. The burn scar of old Vahreth is 200 meters above my head, I said. I am sitting in a room that my people built because we decided, 31,000 years ago, that we would be here when you came back. Not because we were certain you would come. Because we had read what you wrote, and we took your words seriously. You said you would return. We believed you. We made arrangements. Arrangements, the High Consecrator repeated, as if testing the word against a concept too large for it. 31,000 years of them, I said. You are welcome to review the full log. The channel was quiet for a time. I watched Sel Farron at her station, her hands steady over her board, her eyes moving through her grid with the calm precision she had always had. I thought about the long chain of commanders who had sat where I sat, each one handing the chair to the next with the same note in the transfer brief, * they will come on the tablet date. Be here, * 11 of my predecessors had sat in this chair and never seen the transit signatures open. The 12th had been me. Warden Vault. The High Consecrator's voice had changed in a way I recognized from the linguistic profiles our analysts had built, a flattening of the ritual cadence, the tonal shift their speakers made when stepping outside the formal register. We require time to assess what you have transmitted. Take the time you need, I said. We have been patient this long. It was not a boast. It was simply a fact. I sat in the vault for another 6 hours while the Vahreth Eternal March ran their scans and read 31,000 years of annotations and looked at the maintenance logs and the warship tiers and the defense grid and the relay tower rising out of the burn scar of old Vahreth, and thought about what it meant that we had built all of it on the exact spot they had declared sacred to destruction. When the High Consecrator came back on the channel, the question was quieter than I expected. What do you want from us? I had my answer ready. Every vault commander in the unbroken chain had their version of it ready. I gave mine. A conversation, I said. When you are prepared to have one. We have been keeping the record. There is no urgency on our side. 6 hours after that, I handed the vault chair to Sel Farron and walked up through the relay corridors to the surface. The morning was cold and clear. Above me, if I looked straight up, I could see the running lights of the outer grid moving in their slow, deliberate arcs. Below my feet, 200 meters down, the Warden Vault hummed with 31,000 years of unbroken purpose. They had burned a city here, once. We had built something on the ash. That seemed to me like the correct answer.